Welcome back. As you know, I am Eli the Computer Guy here for the Daily Blob, where we're actually gonna talk about real technology today. Trigger warning, we're gonna talk about robots and AI. So if you're here for the politics, this ain't gonna be your video. So anyways, I've been talking about the whole AI thing and robotics thing for a while. And one of the things that I brought up in the whole world of robotics is just this whole problem of how do you actually implement robots in such a way that they are actually useful. Right? Like one of the big things when we talk about autonomous vehicles and especially autonomous truck driving is one of the problems we have with warehouse facilities here in the United States is many of the places that warehouses are situated basically were built and designed 100 or 150 years ago. So even for human drivers, they're a complete and utter pain in the ass to maneuver through, right? It's not simply about can a robotic vehicle drive as good as a human driver would. It's that even a human driver has a lot of problems with these warehouse facilities. And so one of the things that I brought up is something to consider, especially as a technology professional or CIO, CTO, is looking at facilities and building facilities and facilities management and thinking about designing your facilities in such a way to make them accessible for robots and for autonomous systems. So one of the things that I've argued again with this whole idea with autonomous trucking is we're not going to see like autonomous trucks truly take over until entirely new warehouse facilities and warehouse parks are built. Again, having lived in Baltimore City for 20 years, again, back when I had my company, I used to install surveillance systems and those types of things into warehouses and those types of facilities. And the reality is again, we have these very old facilities that exist that suck, that are horrible, and basically what needs to happen is those old facilities need to be turned into fancy new condos, and they need to go outside the beltway, essentially clear cut a couple miles of land and put in new warehouse facilities, right? So you can just have nice, easy on and off ramps, right? So we already have these beautiful interstate systems here. If you have a warehouse park where you have big, clear, easy to use on and off ramps, basically you can just have those autonomous robot vehicles easily get onto the interstate system. They can just go 1,000 miles in that direction and get to the warehouse facility in that direction, easily get off into the warehouse park. And so one of the things to be considering, again, with the actual deployment of technology, is the deployment of technology revolves around more than TCP/IP, more than function or API calls, more than the technology itself. It's also the environment these systems are going to be used in. That's one of the things that comes up with bipedal robots, so human-looking robots. One of the issues you have with those types of systems is simply they consume a tremendous amount of electricity, right? Think about your smartphone. Think about your little computer device, your laptop or whatever else, and think about how long it takes for it to run out of its battery. Now imagine a 5-foot-tall bipedal robot that has an incredibly powerful computer running in it so it can react to the environment. Plus, it actually has to move all of its appendages. And when it moves its appendages, it doesn't just do it for show. It actually has to do it with enough force to complete a task. And one of the issues that you run into with a lot of these bipedal robots is as soon as you unplug them out of the wall, their battery life is just not that long. And so one of the big questions there is, again, how can you use these in a situation where you do not need a battery that will last a long time? These are things to consider. Also things like with autonomous delivery, right? So Walmart's doing autonomous delivery, Amazon's doing autonomous delivery, and they're doing it with quadcopters, right? So they send up quadcopters, and basically you can get your soap or I don't know, your Raspberry Pi delivered to you in 15 minutes. So one of the issues you run into, though, is, again, it's the actual environment. So I'm here on the East Coast. So I've generally in my life lived in the East Coast of the United States. And we got a lot of trees. It's interesting for the international folks, the non-American folks. For some reason, they always see these movies about Nevada and things, so they don't realize we have a lot of trees. We got a lot of trees, right? And so if you have this quadcopter, you can have the quadcopter take off from the warehouse. You can have the quadcopter fly all the way to my house. But once it gets to my house, again, ergo, we got a lot of trees. Like, how is it going to deal with those trees? And that's a big issue to think about. So again, if you're thinking about quadcopter delivery, you're burning a tremendous amount of electricity for what you're doing, because again, you have to have 4 blades spinning in order to get this thing into the air. Really no aerodynamics. With those quadcopter things, there's no air. It's just pure force gets them into the air. And then they got to come here, they got to figure out how to deliver something, and they got to figure out how to deliver something without chopping up my chihuahua or whatever else when it does. And so there's a lot of questions about how all this kind of stuff can be done. And it's one of those things, again, that's interesting when so many people talk about technology. They really don't talk about those workflows and how we can actually use these devices in the modern world. And so that's what I find curious about today's story with Amazon, where they're looking to use bipedal robots in order to deliver packages from the vehicle basically to your door, right? So these are some of the robots. They're from Agile. So they're already playing around with these robots. I guess the new robots will be slightly different. So this is a nice little bipedal robot. It's got some little arm sticks here, and the idea is it can walk around. If we go over, we take a look at this, you can see the bipedal robots doing their thing in the warehouse facility. And so this is with them playing around. But one of the things to be thinking about, again, if you're thinking about the concept of delivery, how are we going to make delivery autonomous? How can we make it efficient? And how can we make it as not dangerous as possible? Again, having thousands of quadcopters zipping through the air over neighborhoods, I've got to believe people are going to hate at some period of time. Again, think about the noise the quadcopter. Imagine all day. Again, imagine if you're in like an apartment complex. Imagine you got 100 apartments in the complex, and then people are ordering like 3 things a day. Right? That's just going to be annoying. There's a whole bunch of pain in the ass. So one of the curious things here is, what if you can just simply automate the delivery process basically in a way that kind of sort of looks like we currently have? So what if you have autonomous vehicles? So you have the autonomous vehicles driving around. So we may or may not understand how to do that yet. We'll find out in August. We'll find out how many people Elon Musk kills in August to find out how well these systems work. Anyways, you can have the autonomous vehicles driving around, but the problem with the autonomous vehicles driving around is you still got to get the package from the vehicle to the doorstep. So the idea is, what if you could use these robots to take the package from the vehicle to the doorstep? And again, that's one of the things to be thinking about with like electricity or energy consumption, right? Having a robot walk around a lot is going to be a problem. It's going to burn through a lot of electricity. But if basically a robot is in a cradle in a vehicle, it comes out of the cradle, grabs the package, walks to a door, drops the package off at the door, goes back to the cradle, starts to recharge again. Basically, it will only be away from the vehicle for maybe 5 minutes at a go. That's something that the batteries should be able to deal with relatively easily. And I think this is kind of like an interesting concept to think about. And also, again, with these robots, if you put them into specific neighborhoods, specific areas, it should be something that's very feasible. So one thing to think about, again, if you go into apartment complexes or other places, having these kind of robots move around might not work out so well, right? You got a lot of doors, you got to go up steps, you got to interact with a lot of things. But you think about it, in the United States, a lot of our neighborhoods, especially a lot of our suburban neighborhoods, especially if they have HOAs, home owners associations, it's actually really easy to get to somebody's door. Like many of them, they're not even allowed to have fences. So again, you go to Texas, you go to these huge suburbs, and basically got lots of houses. So you have lots of houses, you have pretty good roads, you have lots of houses. There is a cement sidewalk that literally goes straight to the door. There's no gates, there's no fences, there might not even be steps. And again, if you're in Texas or something, there shouldn't even be ice or any really too much inclement weather. So you can have the robot come out of the vehicle, grab the package, totter over to the door, drop the package at the door, walk back. And it seems with 2025 technology that this should already be feasible. If we go over, we take a look at this particular article. So this is coming from The Verge. Amazon is reportedly training humanoid robots to deliver packages. Future Amazon orders may be delivered to your door by a humanoid, a robot workforce. Amazon is developing design AI software that will enable robots to operate as package delivery workers that are ferried around in Rivian electric vans and will soon be ready to start real-world testing at a new facility. And again, if I look at this, out of all the claims of AI is more dangerous than nuclear weapon. No, it's not. No, it's not. AI is going to destroy coders. No, it's not going to do that either. AI can be used to automate a robot to take a package from a van to a door. Yeah, I can actually buy that. That one actually seems pretty good. We'll soon be ready to start real-world testing at a new facility. Citing an anonymous source, quote, involved in the effort, the information says that Amazon has almost finished constructing an indoor humanoid park in one of the retail giant San Francisco offices that's roughly the size of a coffee shop. Now, I do have to say, it's like, wow, it's a humanoid park the size of a coffee shop. I do have to say that seems a wee bit small. That seems a wee bit small, but I don't know. Maybe they got big coffee shops in San Francisco. The obstacle course reportedly contains one Rivian van for training purposes, with Amazon aiming to have humanoid robots, quote, hitch a ride in the back of Amazon's electric Rivian vans and spring out to deliver packages. And again, think about that for any number of things. Again, if it can spring out to deliver a package, it can probably spring out to deliver a pizza. It can probably spring out to deliver you a Frappuccino. How does consumer retail change when you can have a relatively inexpensive, completely autonomous system to get a product from the vendor to the customer literally in 30 minutes or less? It's kind of interesting to think about. The report coincides with Amazon launching a new agentic AI team to help develop technologies that will power robots, quote, operating in Amazon distribution and logistic hubs. In a statement to Silicon Valley, Amazon says that, quote, instead of rigid, specialized robots, we're creating systems that can hear, understand, and act on natural language commands, turning warehouse robots into flexible, multi-talented assistants. Hundreds of thousands of people currently handle delivery operations at Amazon globally. Amazon acquired a robotaxi company, Zoox, in 2020, suggesting a desire to fully automate end-to-end package delivery from the warehouse to your front door. And so the thing to be considering here, again, whether you're going to be creating a business or whether you're going to be a consultant for businesses that are going to be created, is one of the things that I've discussed is basically this whole idea of, are you designing a business for today, for 2025, or are you designing a business for 2005? And I think one of the big problems we have here in the United States is everybody's still designing everything for 2005. They're not even designing it, like how they should be designing it is for 2035. But they're not designing it for 2025 or even 2015. They're still designing off of 2005. I think one of the curious things, you can see this with grocery stores, right? I've been even in new grocery stores, even quote unquote high-end grocery stores like Whole Foods. The Instacart thing is a complete and utter damn disaster for normal customers. For normal customers, right? So I'm in there, I'm buying my Whole Food stuff, and I'll be damned, these damn Instacart motherfuckers keep trying to run my ass over, right? Why? Because they're paid on the gig. They're paid basically by how fast they can complete the order. They're Instacart, so they're not really paid by Whole Foods. So I am not actually their customer, and they're not actually a Whole Foods employee. And so basically you go into Whole Foods now, and you have these people, and they got these big ass carts, and they're running through this grocery store trying to grab all these products so they can deliver the food in a modern way. And again, you just think about this, and you're like, is that really the way you want to design a grocery store for 2025? It seems like you could probably do things a lot more efficiently. Again, if you look at grocery stores now, right, they have the back area generally for the deliveries, the real loading docks and those types of things, and then they have the front area where you have the normal parking, and that's basically it. Again, one of my questions for this type of thing is where is the loading and the parking area for the Instacart type gig workers? Now, again, if you're running a grocery store, you may think, well, I'm not always going to use Instacart. Yeah, but whether it's Instacart or Uber Eats or Grubhub or you actually pay for your own damn drivers to do the work, you know that delivery of groceries isn't going to go away. So when you're building your brand new grocery store, why the hell are you not designing areas that are designed for delivery, right? So delivery drivers can come in very quickly, they can pick up what they need, they can get any additional instructions, they can very easily go and do things like go to the bathroom or whatever else and be able to get out of the store. One of the fascinating things that we see is, again, the folks aren't designing for that particular world. And so something to consider going into the future is we know these robots are on the way. We know autonomous vehicles are on the way. Will it be before or after Elon Musk goes bankrupt and gets deported back to South Africa? Hey, I got to throw some clickbaity stuff in here. Right? Will autonomous vehicles be fully functional before Elon Musk is a South African again? Right? I don't know. Again, is it going to be a year, 2? Probably not. But is it going to be 10? Is it going to be 10? I think it's a pretty safe bet to say autonomous delivery type vehicles will be validated by 2035. And again, one thing to find as you get closer to 50, like me, it's amazing how fast time goes by. 10 years? You know, 10 years ago today, I was in a travel trailer with my wife, traveling around the country as a young 38-year-old. It's been a while, right? It's amazing how quickly 10 years goes by. So if you're going to be building facilities, you're going to be setting up facilities that are going to be expected to last for 20, 30, 40, 50 years, right? Are you designing based off of the systems that we know are going to be coming down the pike relatively quickly? Again, with the delivery options, with autonomous vehicles, that type of thing. And then thinking about with this is how does it change your business model when autonomous vehicles come in? Again, think about that. You know, one of the things I've considered with autonomous vehicles is, I need to write a blog post about this, meant to. Think about a world that runs at the speed of 25 miles an hour. Now follow me for a second, right? So when you look at things like energy efficiency, right? The reason in the United States that speed limits were set to 55 miles per gallon or 55 miles per hour because that was fast enough to get people from point A to point B. And what they found is if you go over 55 miles an hour, the efficiency, the fuel efficiency of your vehicle dramatically goes down, right? So during the gas crisis, they changed the speed limits to 55 miles an hour to increase fuel efficiency. Well, the curious thing is, like, what if you could decrease the speed vehicles go, especially on things like interstates, down to 25 miles an hour? Now consider this. For fuel efficiency, it would be better. Essentially, more or less the slower the vehicle goes, the better fuel efficiency, better energy efficiency that you get. Not only that, it would be less dangerous, right? Again, back in my days, getting a criminal justice degree, all kinds of stuff. I was a combat lifesaver, and I was a EMS first responder. One of the interesting things is 25 miles an hour, I forget what it's called, it's like the fatality speed. Basically, if a human being gets hit by a vehicle going 25 miles an hour or less, there is a relatively good chance that they're going to survive. Might not be happy about surviving, but there's a good chance that they're going to survive. If the vehicle is going over 25 miles an hour, they're most likely just always going to be dead. That's one of the reasons in residential neighborhoods, they have a 25 mile an hour speed limit with the idea of even if you do hit somebody, well, you shouldn't kill them. Which is why if you speed through residential neighborhoods at above 25 miles an hour, you're a worthless piece of crap that should go to hell. But anyways, diatribe. The curious thing, though, is think about this on our interstate systems. Again, think about this with things like wildlife, right? Why do we have issues with wildlife in the United States? Again, big wildlife, buffaloes and deer and bear and moose and all that kind of stuff. Because again, if they wander across the interstate, you're driving 70 miles an hour on the interstate, you hit moose, it's going to be bad for everybody. It's not just going to be bad for the moose. It's going to be bad for you too, right? But why do we want speed limits of 70 miles an hour? Why do we want speed limits like in Montana of unlimited speed in daylight conditions? Because human beings have to get from point A to point B, and they're relatively impatient. Again, especially with the laws, the regulations, again, regulatory burden in the United States is for truck drivers especially. They can only drive so many hours or even work so many hours within a 24-hour period without having to take a certain amount of rest break, right? So if you have one truck driver going 55 miles an hour and you have another truck driver going 75 miles an hour if they're both driving for 10 hours, that one going 75 miles an hour can go 200 more miles. Essentially can drive almost the equivalent of 4 hours more than the one going 55 miles an hour, right? So that's really significant. But think about this for a second. Think about if you have electric autonomous vehicles that can simply constantly drive. Right? If you had to have a vehicle get from point A to point B, and again, you have a human being, you'd want it to do it as quickly as possible. But if you've got an autonomous vehicle, maybe you could have in its system trying to figure out where there will be an opening, right? So again, you got to think about resources. So one of the resources, so you have resources of vehicle, you have resources of trailer, but one of the resources you also have is open spaces at warehouses. So let's say you have a very busy warehouse here. So you want to get the truck out of the loading dock area as quickly as possible so another truck can go in. But the issue is if this truck goes at 75 miles an hour to get to this loading, the warehouse on the other side, their loading dock might be full. So what if this truck can pull out as quickly as possible, and then it can figure out when is a loading dock most likely to be available at the warehouse that it's trying to go to that's 1,000 miles away. And then it can simply adjust the speed to get there, right? And so therefore, again, you think about it with a human driver. If a human driver drives for 10 hours, they have to take a break. You wouldn't want a human driver driving at 25 miles an hour because they'd only get 250 miles in a 10-hour period, and then they'd have to take a break. But think about this. At 25 miles an hour, if you could drive nearly constantly, just go from point A to point B, right? What is that? That gets you to 625 miles. Again, now, if you think about the United States, how it is, it's 3,000 miles. So it's 3,000 miles across and about 2,000 miles top to bottom. But so you can go from point A to point B at 25 miles an hour, you get 625 miles. So let's say in a day and a half of driving, you could get to 1,000 miles. And that's probably going to get you to any of your delivery points. Imagine if you could have these vehicles that are incredibly energy efficient, that are a hell of a lot safer driving on the roads, that allow more of our animal life and all that kind of stuff to be around because they're not going at 70 miles an hour. And they're just kind of slowly trucking along. Like, how would you create your logistics business in a 25 mile an hour world? And that's the thing to be considering with this technology and with the people and then the regulations and the environment. How does this all come together to allow you to build a business for 2035 and not for 1935? Right, I think about this with one CEO I know. Again, great story. I talk about it a lot. So he saw computers coming out in the 1970s. Like, wow, fancy computers in the 1970s. So he went and he talked with the folks at IBM, right? So he rang up the CEO, ran up executives at IBM to figure out where computers were going. So he was a CEO. So, he was in the CEO ranks. He wasn't IBM CEO, but he was still a CEO. And he was running a logistics company. And he was like, wow, I bet computers would allow us to run our logistics systems a lot better. So he literally talked to the IBM people, talked to programmers, the whole 9 yards, and he figured out what the roadmap for computers were. And he realized that the computers that were currently out at that time were not powerful enough to run the logistics software that he wanted to have created. But looking at the roadmap, he knew that those computers would come out in about 3 years, right? So what did he do? He went out, he hired programmers, he hired designers, the whole 9 yards, literally designed the entire logistics suite, and took about a year, and then basically it sat there collecting dust for 2 years. The new computer systems came out at the 3-year mark when they were supposed to, installed it, did some debugging on the new systems, and all of a sudden he had this brand new logistics suite that literally nobody else had because he had it written before the computers existed that were able to run the software. The interesting thing with that particular company is logistics. So it was a regional thing. It's not like they're going to take over the world anyway. So that actually became a profit center too, right? Created this logistics software, and then he started selling it to other logistics companies because, hell, if he spent a lot of money to create it, maybe they would pay a lot of money to buy their own licenses, and that became its own profit center, right? Looking at the technology and the blueprints for what's about to be created, thinking about where that's going to put, your industry in 10 or 20 years, and then start designing towards that viewpoint. Again, I think is a very interesting thing. And that's why I say the technology world is exciting. Again, my frustration. So right now I'm doing these commentary videos and you're like, Eli, why are you doing commentary videos? I thought you wanted to do education. And this is my problem. This is my real problem. You want to hear me bitch for a minute? You want to hear me bitch for a minute? We'll put this bitch session in a video nobody else will watch. It'll be between you and me and 100 other people. Anyways, here's the thing. I'm very excited about the future of technology because there's so many of these things that really can make our lives better. Again, when we take a look at things like artificial intelligence and that type of thing, again, like it sounds stupid, but again, think about the future at the speed of 25 miles an hour. Imagine a United States where buffalo truly can run free because our interstate system is slow enough that they're no longer a danger to the system. Imagine being able to rewild the United States because we're not so terrified that a vehicle is going to hit a deer at 75 miles an hour and just be bad for everybody involved. Again, imagine a world where if you're handicapped, like you don't have to worry about access to food or access to resources or whatever else, right? You can just go and you can just plug whatever you need into a grocery app and you will get the groceries or the food or the support, all of that kind of stuff that you need. I think all of this stuff is truly amazing. This is far beyond who the fuck, LLMs or LLMs. They're fine, but fuck LLMs, right? There's so much of this interesting, amazing stuff. And we need people to build these systems. We need people to deploy these systems and maintain these systems. We need people to design infrastructure. Again, I think designing facilities around robotic accessibility is just a massive market. Again, you think about things like robot lawnmowers, right? Or it's like robot lawnmowers. Yeah, do you see so many people's lawns? Right? You got bushes all over the place. You got rocks in there. You got all kinds of crazy stuff going on. Man, you put a robot lawnmower into most people's lawns, and it'll be slightly better than hitting a deer at 75 miles an hour, right? So one of the things to be thinking about is like, look, if we're going to do robot lawnmowers, let's start creating landscape design based off of an autonomous world. The reason that we're going to put a bush here, the reason that we're going to put this retaining wall here, the reason that we're going to do these things is based off of having, like I say, these robotic devices, be able to do lawn mowing and all that kind of stuff. That's amazing. There is so much opportunity here. There is so much money here, and there's so much good, right? Everybody is whining and crying and bitching and moaning about AI is going to destroy the world. And they don't see the valid use cases that actually make the world a hell of a lot better. And one of the reasons I'm sitting here doing fucking commentary videos instead of education is I can't get this through anybody's head. Right? I do classes about IoT. I do classes about robotics. I do classes about AI. And it's all just still fucking keyboards and screens and I don't know, coming up with the next Angry Bird so you can make $1 billion. Right? The whole thing of using technology as exists to solve problems and how far we've come with technology. And most people don't want to hear it. Again, I talk about this a lot. People want the job of being technology professionals. They don't want the work of being technology professionals. They don't want to innovate. They don't want to have visions of the future. They don't want to make people's lives better. They want a paycheck, and they want respect, and they want job security, dumbasses. So anyways, there we go. Some bright sides in the technology world and a bit of my bitch session. There is so much possibility out there with these new systems. Again, computer vision, natural language processing, AI, however you define AI, autonomous systems, all of this kind of stuff. But we need to be thinking about a world that doesn't look like the world we have today. We need to think about being a technology professional beyond simply keyboards and screens and Wi-Fi connections. If you do that, again, I truly think, the next few decades, you'll be doing pretty well. If all you know is the JavaScript stack, then yeah, your job is probably going to be taken away by AI. But oh well. Creative destruction requires somebody be destroyed, I suppose. So anyways, there you go. What do you think? What do you think about these robots? What do you think about these robots doing, like, they call it like last mile delivery? What do you think about these robots doing like last couple of feet delivery? What do you think about building facilities designed around robot accessibility? Again, when we talk about STEM, right? Science, technology, engineering, math, do you think of architecture in STEM? Again, when we talk about this, do you think about designing facilities to allow for autonomous systems to be more efficient? I don't know. It's the stuff I ponder. And that's why I'm here, screaming at clouds. I will scream at Azure. I will scream at AWS. Every once in a while, I will even scream at DigitalOcean just to entertain you folks. Because apparently in the modern world, people want dancing monkeys. They don't really care that much about robots. I don't know. Put your thoughts down below. See y'all later.